Broadcasting from the Dixon Petunia Festival Sweetland Studios, this is Along the Rock.
Hello again, and welcome to Along the Rock, our podcast that pays homage to the people of the Sauk Valley and the river that runs through it. I'm Mark Morris. I'll be your host today. My guests, a very special upcoming event, Melinda Jones and Josh Duffee, and we'll be talking about a drummer, a band leader, once married to Pearl Bailey, and worked a whole lot more than I ever thought he did on hundreds and hundreds of songs and with dozens of different bands. Louis Bellson, native of Rock Falls. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Melinda and Josh.
Thanks so much.
And I'll let anybody start that wants. This will be the fourth year, I think you said.
Yes.
Melinda. And this year's festival is June 7th. Now, of course, this program that we're doing right now will be on before that, obviously, so that people can find out all about it. But Louis Bellson, I confess I didn't know that much about him, but anybody who is in the drumming world and the music world, and especially in the big band era and beyond, knows quite a bit more than I do. So, Josh, why don't you tell us about Louis Bellson?
Yeah, so Louis Bellson was born on July 6th, 1924, here in Rock Falls, Illinois, and stayed here a short amount of time with his family before moving south to Peoria, and then they moved back north to Rock Island, Illinois, and then they settled in Moline, Illinois, because his father had a music store at 1711 Fifth Avenue, and that's where Louis was learning to play a lot of the percussion. That's where he invented his double bass system that he became very well known for. But he graduated from Moline High School in 1942. And from that graduation, he boarded the train and immediately went and played with Ted Fiorito and his orchestra, because Ted Fiorito was passing through the Quad Cities and had heard Louis playing at the Plantation, which was a great establishment for food and for entertainment back in the day. And Louis said, I unfortunately can't go with you on the road because my parents said I need to graduate before I go play with any bands. They were a very strong Italian family, and Louis's name wasn't Louis Bellson. It was Luigi Paolino Alfredo Francesco Antonio Ballassoni.
Holy cow!
So that was his true given name.
All right.
So we shortened it to Louis Bellson, and I think a lot of people appreciated that.
Yeah, very common back then as well.
Yes. And so he had a very strong playing career. I mean, at age 18, he was playing with Ted Fiorito and with Benny Goodman, one of the best bands in the entire country. And just about a year before that, he won the Gene Krupa Drum Contest in 1941, beating out over 10,000 drummers. So here he is about a year later playing in Gene Krupa's position with the Benny Goodman Orchestra. Kind of surreal, as he told me when I got to meet him many, many years ago. And then he had a chance to play with Harry James, with the great Tommy Dorsey. But the big break came when he got to play with Duke Ellington in the early 1950s. And this was huge because Duke Ellington was one of those last surviving big bands, because they were starting to kind of phase out with the new R&B movement coming around and the early rock and roll. But Duke had that strong big band sound and that strong name. So he hired Louis Bellson to come in and play. And that quote goes that he called Louis Bellson one of the world's greatest musicians. So for that to come from Duke Ellington, that's huge. And this is also when he met his wife, Pearl Bailey, when he was in the Duke Ellington band. And they flew overseas to England, and that's where he married Pearl Bailey in November of 1952 at Caxton Hall. And then from there, he was the music director for Pearl Bailey as they were touring around the country. And a lot of people don't know that he was actually offered the position of the band leader for The Tonight Show before Doc Severinsen.
Really?
Because Johnny Carson himself was a drummer, loved Louis Bellson. But Louis said, I unfortunately am going to turn this down. He goes, thank you for the offer, but I do not want to leave Pearl on the road without her. I'm writing the arrangements. I love my wife. I want to be with her. And so he stayed with the band, with Pearl. And then, of course, Doc Severinsen came in. But I said, what would it have been for us in Rock Falls and the Quad Cities to see local native Louis Bellson leading that band? But he made frequent visits with that band because Johnny had had him come on and guest. Or if Ed Shaughnessy, the original drummer for Doc Severinsen, was sick, they'd have Louis Bellson come in. But that's because he was a class act. He was a gentleman, always had a smile on his face, loved music, but loved teaching this music to the younger generation.
Wow. And I hadn't realized either that his dad was a musician, obviously. He ran a music store.
Yes, ran the music store, taught accordion lessons out of the music store there. And when Louis was first getting interested in the drums, he saw a marching band when they were down in the Peoria area. And he said, that's what I want to play right there. Because he saw the percussion coming through, and then he saw the snare drum, the bass drum. So his father got him the practice pad and the drumsticks and said, let's start with the rudiments. And so one of his early teachers was Murray Spivak, who was a great drummer of the 1920s and early 30s, as well as Roy Knapp. So he would take the train from Moline and the Rock Island area to Chicago and take lessons with these very professional musicians that were some of the best in the country.
Okay. Well, that's quite a history. But we mentioned before we started taping here that I assumed that there would be maybe a handful of books about Louis Bellson.
Correct.
And you said no.
There was one that I had just thought of here. There's a gentleman by the name of Dave Black, and he worked on the Alfred's Beginning Drum Set Method, which is a method book, because Louis was very much into writing method books for the young generation to learn. And I just remember that I believe it's through Hudson Music that Dave Black has written a book about Louis. I think it was with his interaction with him and some stories that he had with Louis. But as far as like an official biography, I don't believe there's an official biography of Louis. We're fortunate to have quite a few of Bick Spiderbeck, being from Davenport, Iowa. Right. But it'd be great to start seeing some happen with Louis Bellson here in the future. I would love to write one, but the time is the one thing that's against me. So maybe when I start getting a little bit older. So I've got all the knowledge, and I've been doing all this research for the years that I'm able to share with audiences when I'm on stage performing or with a young generation and say, you should be proud of Louis Bellson. He's from Rock Falls here. He's from the Quad Cities, and he is known still worldwide for his drumming, and he's on the Mount Rushmore of drummers. And that's not from me. When I travel around the country and say, yeah, I'm from Moline, Illinois, Davenport, Iowa area, they're like, oh, that's where Bick Spiderbeck and that's where Louis Bellson's from. So they know him around the world.
Well, I think you better make some time for the book. That's what I think. And we'll have you back on when you start on that.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
That'll give you a little extra added incentive. So, Melinda, what kind of an impact does this festival have?
That's a really good impact. Everybody that is in the music world, so they all know his name. The drumming world, they know his name. And so having this festival just brings everybody together to commemorate what he was, the famous person that he is. So.
Family fun is blooming in Dixon. The Petunia Festival is back July 3rd to 6th with rides, food, the annual parade, and so much more. Don't miss it. Visit petuniafestival.org.
I have never been to the festival. My wife and I spent some time at various radio stations around the upper Midwest the last up until 5 years ago. And I just wonder what kind of format you use and who do you expect to come in, and do you, invite certain people and have certain things that you concentrate on?
Yeah. So we usually start out the day, we always start out the day with the drum clinic. Okay. We've had past drummers as being Steve Smith. Steve Smith, he was a drummer for the band Journey when the Journey was first out. We had Alfredo Reyes, he's the current drummer for the band Chicago. And this year we're going to have Greg Potter, who is the drummer for the Buddy Rich Big Band Machine. Right. So he will be there. And so that is held at the McCormick Event Center. And it's from 11:30 to 12:30. It's free. We have tons of raffles. We just actually went through. Yeah. We have a lot of raffles that will be given away that drummers will love to have. There's drumsticks and drum pad, and there's just all kinds of stuff.
Stickers, T-shirts, lanyards. I mean, there's so much. Yeah.
So again, it's a free event, so they can come over to the McCormick Event Center, which is right across the street from where the RB&W district is. And at 1 o'clock, we will start with having our bands. Each band will perform about 90 minutes with a half an hour in between them to get everybody switched over. We start off at 1 o'clock with Yorkville Big Band from Yorkville, Illinois.
Okay.
So they're awesome. They were here last year. They kind of got rained out, so we wanted to invite them back so they could finish out their whole show. And then at 3 o'clock, we have the Abby Growls Band, and they're from Cedar Rapids area, I believe.
Yeah, Cedar Rapids, like Quad Cities.
Yep. And then at 5 o'clock, then we have Josh Duffee and the
Black Hawk Concerts. Yep.
And then at let's see,
7
7 o'clock. Yep. We have Rare Element. They're from Wisconsin. So we have a really great lineup, all different kinds of music. You've got jazz, you got R&B, you got soul, you got the big band. So just everything that everybody's going to enjoy.
A very full day.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And a great variety of music, because that's how Louis played as well. Is that a lot of people know him for playing jazz, but a lot of people don't know he recorded an album with James Brown called Soul on Top. And so he could lay down the funk grooves. Oh, yeah. So, and James Brown was very hard on drummers. And at a reunion later on in their careers, Louis had told me that they were in this room and this guy came up and said, "Oh, you drummed for James Brown, you survived? Wow." He said at that point, James Brown came in and saw Louis, like, "Oh my gosh, Louis Bellson." Came over and gave him a big hug, and he's like, "I guess James really loved your playing if he's going to give you a big hug like that." But Louis told me that's the whole point of playing music, is the variety of it. He's like, stay as open-minded as you can. And I was able to take some lessons with him in the Quad Cities when I was in high school. And so I was learning how to play brushes like Papa Joe Jones from the Count Basie Band, and then play in the Louis Bellson style with the right technique and the press rolls, and then play funk style, play R&B, play blues. He goes, that's what music is about. It's just being able to express yourself in many different styles.
Okay, well that's, again, you're telling me a lot of things that I had never heard. I would never have guessed James Brown because, you just don't think of the two in the same breath, I guess.
Exactly. But, and that was the Louis Bellson Orchestra with Oliver Nelson conducting. And so Louis did the arrangements for that, and then James was singing. And it's there's a great version of For Once in My Life that I still go back to quite a bit. And you just hear James Brown. He's doing like what you know for James Brown vocals. Sure. He's doing that with a full big band behind him, and it's very impressive.
Wow. Okay. Ticket prices for anything and everything?
It is all free.
The best price.
That's the best thing about it. Yep. We can, especially like to go to the drum clinic and see somebody like Greg Potter. I mean, it's free. You get to go in there and learn all of his techniques and get to meet him and, one-on-one, see him. And all free. And like a ticket price like this to see a clinic in Chicago would be possibly $50 to $100 to spend time with an artist like that. Sure. And that's what makes Rock Falls tourism so wonderful with all the sponsors that help make this event possible, is that it can be offered to the community for free. And a day when prices are going up on everything, it's like, bring the family out. And I know Melinda's got food vendors that are going to be there. Yeah. And so you can support the local community by supporting a local vendor like that. So you don't even have to go, once you get there, just grab your lawn chair, enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy the music. It's all free. Go get some food. They have new restrooms there at the park now. So we do. It's amazing. So. Yeah, perfect day. And we're going to have perfect weather. That's right. So from her mouth to God's ear. Fourth year, what kind of crowd have crowds have you had, and then what kind of crowd do you expect this year based on, history? We've always had a really great crowd. We get a lot of people from the outside Chicago area, the suburbs. We get them from Wisconsin, we get them Quad Cities. So we'll have a really nice crowd this year, especially with having bands from Wisconsin, Quad Cities, Cedar Rapids area, or Yorkville, so you got outside Chicago. So we expect a really good crowd and nice attendance. So okay, yeah, and a lot of people when they come, they're like, we heard about this through the advertising. This is an amazing event. It's free. They're like, we're going to be telling all the people that we know about this to come back next year. They said the quality of the bands are incredible. The atmosphere right by the river down here in Rock Falls is just beautiful. They said, this is a perfect venue for bringing your family, and you don't have to pay anything for it. So I said, it's amazing. And we have Peeler Productions doing our sound for the whole event, and he's top notch. So you're getting great quality sound coming from the stage where you can just sit back and enjoy it, but you're not being blasted away where your ears are ringing. So he knows how to balance that sound so it gives everybody in the audience a good chance to hear some good quality music. Well, with the crowds expected, or I guess the crowd, it's a one-day event, but any parking tips or anticipated overcrowding anywhere? We'll have handicap parking that's right up there by the park. Otherwise, right across the street is a whole empty lot, and you can park there. So we've got another parking area that's just east of the Holiday Inn. There's a parking area there. So there's plenty of parking, all free parking. There'll be a VIP section that'll just be for band members, but we'll have people there at the gate, and they'll tell you where to park at and stuff. So pretty easy. Sounds like everything has been thought of. Yeah. And it all starts at 11 o'clock with the drum clinic, and then it wraps up around 8:30 that evening. So it's not a late night. So if they do come an hour and a half away, they can still be home by 10 o'clock.
and in bed and have a full day's worth of music to enjoy.
Or we have lots of hotels here.
That's right.
So we want them to stay at the hotels. So, yeah.
That is for sure.
So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate all the information, and I can guarantee my wife and I will be going.
Good.
Now that we're back in town this year. So good luck with everything. And Louis Bellson, native of right here in good old Rock Falls, and the music lives on. How many albums was he involved with? You know, it had to be in the dozens at least.
Couple hundred albums, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, under his own name, he did a lot, especially starting in the 1950s after he was done performing with Duke Ellington. Then he formed his own band, and he recorded quite a few. But in the early days, he was featured on a lot of 78 RPM records with Tommy Dorsey, with Benny Goodman, and I have quite a few of those records in my collection that I've been able to find over the years. And so it's neat getting to hear the early years of Louis and hear how his music and his drumming evolves as time goes on. But the one thing he always told me is, I still have a lot to learn. That's when he was in his mid-70s, even early 80s. And so when I hear drummers that are possibly in their 20s like, oh, I've reached my peak, this is it. I'm like, Louis Bellson was one of the world's greatest drummers, and he always kept telling me, I still have a lot to learn. And that showed the type of person that he was. He was always wanting to learn and listen to other drummers and other bands and pick up something musically that he could use.
Well, that was music was his muse.
Yes. Yes.
Well, thanks to Melinda Jones and Josh Duffee for coming out. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And again, good luck with everything. And it sounds like you got it down to a science. So
Yeah.
that'll be good. That'll be good for Rock Falls and the whole area. June 7th, right here. So the Bellson Music Fest. Thanks to the guests. Thanks to the crew today for putting everything together and making this whole thing possible. I'm Mark Morris, and I certainly hope you'll join us next time along the rock.